Wow, look at that move. It's like one of those big Delta candles. I mean, who even trades those tiny candles anymore? I like big fat candles. I can't deny when the
Testing 1, 2, 3. Just waiting for some people to join here. Let's see what we got going on. Let's check out our news. Looks like we have we had retail sales today at 7:30 a.m., but there really isn't anything else today, so there shouldn't be any other big news events today. Well, on a higher time frame, the hourly is bearish. The 15-minute is bearish. The 5-minute is also bearish. So we are in full bear mode. We had a nice drop here that I ended up missing. I was taking my daughter to school today. I did get one trade in before the drop, before I had to take her to school. Got 31 points on that one. This would have been really nice to capture that. But it looks like we are in a nice downtrend on the 1. However, the delta looks like it's about to cross above the confirmation line, and this is where you want to start looking for longs. So we'll see where we go here. Go ahead and share the stream link in the group. So this is a strong downtrend. So of course we're still going to be looking for shorts, but this is also the area where we want to start looking for longs as well. It all depends on what the delta is doing. So we'll see how it goes here. We do have a pivot line down here at 20,670. Might want to come down there and tag that first. But we will just sit tight and wait for the next signal that we get. Man, that would have been really nice to be around for this move, though. Right here we had our first lower high. So you could have potentially entered there, lower high with the negative slope on that delta. Then we had another lower high over here. Another potential entry point there. Let's see what this would have been if we would have captured it. Here's the first lower high right here. So if we took that, we would still be in this trade because we don't have an exit signal yet. So we'd currently be up about 118 points, which would be very nice. But we got to keep an eye out for the long here. We are ticking up above the delta. This is our first potential long signal here. I went ahead and went long there. This is our delta squeeze setup. We have a positive slope on the delta. The delta's crossing the confirmation line. Be nice to get more of a positive slope out of that delta. We'll see how it goes here. It does satisfy our requirement though, so if we were in that short, this is where we'd be getting out, flipping long. If the signal line ticks down and I'm underwater, I'm pulling the plug. That is my early exit. The delta is starting to flash positive now, which is a good sign. The screen is frozen. Really? Good morning. Is it frozen for everybody? Can you hear me? me try changing my... Is the screen frozen or no? Let's switch to my... Can you see the news screen? I just switched to news. Now I'm switching back to my main screen. Did that fix it? Oh, the chart is frozen. Okay, let me try to fix that. Is that better now? All right, good. Good morning. Yeah, for some reason the chart was frozen. Not sure why. Awesome. Okay, we jumped in a delta squeeze long setup here. We had a slight positive slope on that delta, and the signal ticked up above the delta. My stop is at break even. It was a really nice move down this morning. I was driving when that happened, so I didn't have a chance to capture it. I did get one trade early in pre-market. I think it was 31 points. So this is trade number 2 for the day for me. Do you always trade this system on the 1 minute? Yeah, my entries and exits are typically on the 1 minute. When I'm trading futures, that is, if I'm trading crypto or then I trade different time frames. On crypto, my entries are typically on the hourly, and then I use bots to trade in and out of those. If we get a tick down here in the red zone, that's my exit. Oh, cool. So you downloaded the playbook. I'm assuming you haven't had much time to really get through it. Yeah, there's a lot of value in there for sure. Can you explain again the entry you took on this one as the delta was still red? Yeah, the delta was red, but what I look for is it's detailed out in the playbook. I look for this positive slope here. I mean, ideally you want it to be positive, but a lot of times if you want to trade a little bit more aggressively, you can get get in before it goes positive. But the main thing is you want this slope to be positive. So even if the delta is negative, if it has a positive slope on it, and if the delta is crossing that confirmation line, this is the area where you want to start looking for longs. So all of this, when the delta is below that confirmation line, longs are no good. So we are ticking down now, so I got to pay attention here. The delta is tapering down, so we're losing steam to the upside, that is. So I'm actually going to all right, I just pulled the plug on that. Got out a little higher than that candle close. Let's see, 719.50. Looks like we got 14 3/4 points on that one. Would have been nice to capture a little bit more of that. You never know when it's really going to take off running, though. If you were looking for, see how high that got. If you're looking for anything less than 40 points, then you would have definitely got that. Couple questions. Do you exit market? Yes. Typically, my exits are market orders on the candle close. My entries, sometimes I do market, sometimes I do limit orders. Depends on the setup, depends on what's happening. What broker are you interfaced with? Right now I'm using Apex with a Rhythmic connection. I was thinking about going short on that tick down from the red zone here, but anytime, like when you get in this area where you've just had a strong impulsive move down and the delta starts getting above the confirmation line, it's kind of a turbulent area right here. So both longs and shorts can, you kind of have to keep a short leash on both of them. Looks like if I would have went short there on that tick down, it would have worked out. If it was a little bit higher, like near the power zone, I probably would have taken it, but we'll just wait here and be patient. Apex with what connection? Rhythmic. Did any of you guys capture that big move down when I was gone? When you say tick down, you mean change in the signal, the SL color, as I do not see a tick down signal where you were thinking to possibly go short. Yeah, what I refer to as a tick down is just the change in color of the signal line. So when it's white, it's going up. When it turns orange, that's what I consider to be a tick down. Now, that Zeiierman actually labeled some of these alerts. He calls the higher low tick ups a tick up. So he doesn't call the first one a tick up. I call them all a tick up. If I'm referring to a higher low, which is the green triangle, I'll call it as a higher low, just to make the distinction between the two. But to me, tick ups or tick downs, and same could be said for the tick downs. If there was a red triangle, like this one right here, that's a lower high. So I don't call that a tick down. I do call it a tick down, but more specifically, I call that a lower high. This one is also what I call a tick down. So, and I think that for the most part is detailed out in the playbook as well. So I suspected that we were going to come down and probably hit this pivot here. So we'll see if we find some support on there. The delta is gaining more steam and momentum to the downside, so we'll see if we end up back below the confirmation line. But on the higher time frames, keep in mind we have a lot of momentum to the downside. So if you look at the 5 minute here, these delta candles are really big and fat. On the 15, you know, they're good size. It's crossing back below that confirmation line. The signal is flat along the bottom, so that signifies a strong momentum move to the downside. And the hourly, you know, if you go way back here, looks like on Monday, we've basically been in a downtrend since Monday on the hourly. There's a lot of chop to start out with, but once we got going, you can see things are still headed down. The confirmation line still has a good negative slope to it. Once the hourly starts looking like this, like what we see on the 1 minute, then we know that we're probably going to be in more of a bullish uptrend on the higher time frames. But just because we're in a downtrend on the higher time frames does not mean we can't go long on the 1 minute. There will still be a lot of long opportunities on the one. If you guys are curious about the trade I took earlier, speaking of that lower high, that was the first lower high in this power zone. When it occurred, here, let me change my view so it's a little clearer. So here's that lower high in the power zone. When that happened, the delta was tapering. So see how this delta candle is smaller than this one? Usually the first lower high is a pretty good entry. So I went ahead and taken that, put my stop above the high. And once we got going here, we started to gain some decent momentum. And I saw that we were about to cross the center line, so I didn't exit on that first tick down. I stayed in, looking for more of this momentum move here, which we ended up getting. And then I exited on this first this first higher low where the delta was also tapering there. I didn't go long there because I had to leave and because I knew news was coming up, and news is what really jostled the price action there after that. All right, we just hit that pivot line. Delta's now back underneath that confirmation line, so we could end up going into a sustained downtrend market condition. Now remember, if we're in well, once you identify the market condition that you're in, that sort of dictates what entries we should be looking for here. So if we end up going into more of a sustained downtrend, then at that point we stop looking for longs altogether. Then we'll only be looking for shorts. But I am not yet convinced that we are in a sustained downtrend. In order to be sustained, the delta has to stick around this lower power zone for quite some time. But we'll see if we find support on this pivot line here. See what crypto is doing. It's like XRP is doing pretty good. Where is my Bitcoin setup? I was just on it. There it is. My bot would have taken me out right here, actually. Because the delta is under this confirmation line and we tick down from the power zone. I have my bot programmed to exit the trade there. So I made, it's like 1.6% on that one. All right, back under that pivot line now. Friday chop suspected. Well, so far it's moving pretty good. Are you referring to crypto? However, you know, you could be right about Friday chop on NQ here, because you know, more often than not, once you make a nice move in one direction, it likes to chop sideways after that. Something to be aware of. Yeah, I'm kind of wishing I would have flipped short there on that tick down. I wanted it to be a little bit higher than it was, but that would have been a nice trade. Yeah, all that momentum on those higher time frames, it's really pushing the price and playing out here. When the price is moving like this, I still get FOMO and want to jump in, but you can't do it. If you just jump in anywhere and the timing isn't right, you could be right in the direction and still get run over, which is not good. Better to just sit on your hands and be patient. Sorry guys, I just realized that I forgot to change my view back to the main scene here. If you are trying to jump on a runaway train like this, and you want to, I guess, be a little bit more risky, entering on that 8 SMA is usually a good spot. So that'd be the white line up here at like 20,658. The 8 SMA. Check out the playbook. I talk about the 8 SMA in there and how to time entries with it. Starting to look like it wants to go into more of a sustained downtrend here. At least it's looking like that at the moment. Yeah, that really would have been a nice move here because there's not really an exit signal yet. So if you did take this lower high in the red zone, you'd still be in this trade. Let's just see what that would have looked like. So here would have been your entry. And you would have been up, looks like 84, 85 points already. Did anyone in the chat take that signal? Yeah, no problem. All right, the delta is starting to taper now. We are getting a higher low in that lower power zone. Now, you know, when we talk about delta squeezes, the one that the best one is the first one. It's this one right here. So it's the one that I took earlier. So if that one ends up failing and you go into more of a sustained downtrend like this, usually it's not a good idea to keep taking those because it's just going to keep pushing down on you. So, I mean, the only way, once you've sort of identified the sustained downtrend, the only way that sort of resets itself is if this delta starts to come back up here and makes it somewhere up here in the upper half. That's a good signal that you're no longer in a sustained downtrend, and you can start looking for longs at that point. So say the delta did do that and it came up here and the signal, you know, came up here to the power zone and then came down here and ticked up like right there. That's your long entry. But it's generally not a good idea to keep jumping in longs as long as it's continuing to push down like this. And it's good to always keep in mind the power of these higher time frames too, and how, like right now, all three time frames have a lot of downwards momentum. So if we can trade with the current and trade with the flow, that's best. The problem is when it's pushing really hard like this, sometimes it's hard to get a good entry if you're, you know, because it's a lot of times it's not good to enter down here in the green zone for a short. So you want to wait for that signal to pull back up in that red zone or buy the red zone. I mean, it's still, you know, probably okay if it was like in this area right below the red zone. But the higher up, usually the better. If you can get a signal to come up in this upper power zone, that's even better. Now, we were talking about the 8 earlier. If anybody would have took a limit order on the 8, you would have got it right here or somewhere in this area. Got in on the 8. Could have jumped on the train there. You know, it seems like that would be risky, but when I do that, you want it to be a wick like this one. I mean, in most cases, it ends up being a wick. Sometimes it'll close above, like here. See how if you were trying to buy the 8 here, or, you know, short the 8 right there, and it closes above, that's usually my out. So if I get a candle close above it, to me, it's better to take the small loss there. You want it to be a wick if you're going to do it. check out the 5-minute. Yeah, that's such a nice move down. You see all this momentum just building in that delta? It's getting fatter and fatter. Let's go to the 15. Yeah, it's a nice move. Here's the hourly. You see how we were just chopping sideways this whole time up here. But once we broke out of that zone, down the hill she goes. Well, let's try to get an idea where it might be going here. Mark out a couple levels. In the hourly. Yeah. There's still a lot of potential downside move there if it actually wants to go all the way. How do you move the high time frame chart panel to the main screen? I just, on the main screen, at the top, I have my different time frames. So I just select, if I want to switch to the 5-minute, I just select 5. I'll switch to the 15, click on 15. But you have to make sure that you have your main window, your 1-minute window. Make sure you have that selected before you change the time frame. It's really tough for me to sit on my hands during these big moves that we've been waiting for all week. There was like 4 days where it just chopped sideways and was nasty price action. All right, we're touching that 8 SMA. We'll see if we can close above it and start moving up a little bit. We want to see a little pullback here so we can jump on. We've just been, I mean, this was the last little pullback we've had. We've just been kind of sitting at, see how, once it gets on one side of that 8 SMA, it loves just hug it and stay on one side. Now that only works when you're in somewhat of a momentum move. If you're chopping sideways, buying and selling the 8's just gonna make you lose money. When it's, because then it'll chop straight through it, and that's no good. Here's like an example of that up here where it's above, then below, above, below. You can't do it when you're going sideways. Once you start moving, you can start using the 8. Getting a little bit of a pullback here. That delta is thinning out on the 1. We did get a tick down in the green zone. See how it's that pullback is really shallow? It's not really ideal, especially with the thin delta like that. It's not ideal. Ideal to go short, that is. What I would prefer to see is pull back to that red zone. However, if you are in a sustained downtrend, you kind of get to a point where almost every one of those little tick downs, like if you're in a sustained downtrend, every one of those tick downs, even if it's in the green zone, most of them will be profitable. A lot of them won't be, you know, huge wins, but they should still be profitable. You can barely see it. This delta is getting above that confirmation line now, so any shorts here are a little risky. Delta's actually starting to flash positive there. I saw a little white on the screen. Still very negative on the higher time frames though. Let's see. Do we have any likes on the stream? Looks like we only have 2 likes. If you guys want to help me out a little bit, please click the like button. And leave a comment on the video as well. I think that helps the algorithm out if you leave a comment. So this is the second Delta squeeze setup. But like I was saying before, once you've identified that sustained market trend, you don't want to trade against that. Playbook details that out. So this still could be a profitable long trade here, but it's better to just wait for the next short opportunity. Let's go ahead and simulate this and pretend that we entered on this delta squeeze. So that's the green triangle, tick up above the delta. The delta has this positive slope. So if this was the first time it happened, we would definitely be going long here, but we've essentially identified we're in a sustained downtrend. So this trade is a little more risky to go long, so we're not doing that. But let's just see if it plays out. Your entry would have been here on the close of this candle, on the green triangle. Yeah, it's not looking great. And we would have stopped out. Good thing we didn't take it. So you are getting a second tick down now from the green zone. I still prefer it to be closer to the red zone. So I'm not going to take that short. I'm still going to just sit on my hands. Miss Hetty, hello. Welcome to the stream. Also, I've been talking about sustained downtrend as a market condition. learning how to identify that is in the playbook as well. So the first step is to identify what market condition you're in, and based on that, that sort of dictates what setups you're going to look for. We're getting another tick up above the delta. Delta's still really thin, so there's not a whole lot of sellers in there anymore. When the delta is thin, the price could go either way. Delta's actually flashing positive now. So, yeah, the only time you want to enter when the delta is thin like that is when you have more probabilities on your side. So, for example, if the signal made it all the way up to this upper red power zone up here, you know that the price has been extended. And so if it starts to thin out at that point, the price wants to snap back usually. And so in that case, a short is good. But when you're down here in the green zone and it thins out, you don't want to be shorting down there. You're just going to get run over. It's like we're back above that 8 SMA. And if it is trying to turn back up here, this is always kind of an area of turbulence because unless the price V bottoms, the price usually has to trade sideways for a little bit before it goes up. And while it's going sideways, it's really a choppy area. And you can identify the chop by looking at this thin spotty delta right here. So you can see how it's thin and alternating from negative, positive, negative, positive. When it's doing that, that is telling you it is sideways chop. So that's usually not the best place to enter. So you want it to sort of work itself out of that chop first before we start looking for other entries. So if we go back here, we can just, we know by looking at this that this is also an area of sideways chop because that delta was alternating. If we bring the price back into view, you can see it up there. See the sideways choppy price action. You don't even have to look at the actual price action candles you could just look at the indicator alone and see that. You know, I could tell like right here, all this is chop. And you look at the price, and sure enough, see how it's chopping that 8 SMA? So if you're trying to go long or short in there, you're probably going to get run over. What you want to see is these nice strong moves with conviction where the delta is consistent. You're going to have the best entries if you're waiting for those. Okay, so as I was talking, we got a tick down near that. Wasn't quite the red zone, but it was near the bid line there. Still not a great area to go short. I've copied your version 2 template from Zeiierman, but don't have the power zones or the red-green areas like you have. Is there a newer template or settings that need changing? All of that setup is detailed in the playbook. Did you download the playbook? There's a whole section that shows how to set that up and how to get those power zones in there. There's also a link in the playbook to download my exact template with all the settings. Yep, all those details are in there. It should be pretty straightforward. Getting another higher low tick up above that thin delta. So it's like the buyers are trying to step in here. They're trying to turn things around. Just got to get through this turbulence first. Delta is flashing positive again, but we're still... Delta doesn't really have a positive slope to it. It's really flat. You want to start seeing a positive slope in that delta. More turbulence. We are printing a lower high on the signal. Delta is still flat in that lower power zone. So definitely sustained downtrend today so far. This could potentially be an entry now that we're getting a lower high if you wanted to go short, but it's still that turbulent area, so it's kind of a lower quality setup. Still haven't had much of a decent pullback. Flashing a higher low there on the signal. So yeah, we're still just chopping sideways. Wasn't official. It just flashed. And there's a big move up. There is our next higher low. Delta is starting to turn positive. Looks like we're trying to break that trend line. Will we break it? This is our second higher low in a row on the signal above the delta. Might be a decent long opportunity there. I just got picked up on the 8. Trying along here. It's kind of a risky area, but I want to see it stay above that 8. Nope. Yeah, it's it. That delta is still just flat along the bottom. I wanted to see it gain more of a positive slope and start to head up. Maybe it'll still do it now, but yeah, we're just chopping that 8 still. And if we tick down here, I'm going to pull the plug. All right. Got out on the close. Looks like 13 points loss on that one. 13.25. We do have that other pivot sitting down there. You might want to go hit that pivot first. Yeah, so usually when you start getting multiple higher lows above the delta and the delta starting to turn positive, it's usually a decent long. In this case, you see how the delta just, it stayed flat. See like back here how it started to head up and we started to get more of a positive slope to it? That's what I was looking to see here. It just didn't happen. So this told you that the buyers just weren't there to pick up the slack. The hourly delta, the candles are actually just getting thicker and thicker, more momentum and strength to the downside. So I still want to jump in a short. There just hasn't really been a good entry yet. The best entry was this one over here. So this is when the signal made it into the red zone. I was in that long there. I should have flipped short, but I was too busy juggling stuff over here. And I wanted to see it pull a little bit higher than it did. But yeah, that would have been beautiful coming down. Getting really close to that pivot down there. You know, as I was saying before, once the market makes a strong move in one direction, a lot of times it just likes to go sideways the rest of the day, or at least a good portion of the day. So I would not be surprised if we just kind of chop sideways in this turbulence here for a couple hours or so. This is what I like to call the Charlie Brown market condition. See the signal line here? How it gets like very up and down, starts to look like Charlie Brown's t-shirt. You don't want to be trading when you see Charlie Brown's t-shirt on the screen. At least I think that's what Charlie Brown's t-shirt looked like. Charlie Brown's t-shirt. Oh yeah, that was his t-shirt. I'll have to add that to the playbook. Let's check out gold and see what's going on over there. Got some chop up here in that upper power zone. However, this move down was pretty nice. Here's your entry, either right here where it starts to turn negative in that power zone. Could have went short right here. And either take the first tick up from the lower power zone if you want a sure thing in the bag. If you wanted to look for the bigger move, wait for the higher low. That would have got you here. Or wait for the delta cross, which occurs right here. However, this delta still has that strong negative slope to it. So when you see that, you usually want to wait for the cross or the tick above the delta. So if you waited for that one, You get out right here, and that's where she turns. So it looks like still some good trades on here. Here's a nice move up from the lower power zone. Here's another one from the lower power zone. There's another one. Back to NQ. Yeah, sometimes it just takes a while to put the brakes on. And you know, when you have a big momentum move and it's trying to put the brakes on, it takes a while for it to slow down. And you end up with all this turbulence because you got all these people trying to go short still, all these people trying to go long, thinking that the move's over. And you can see it in the delta. You can see the indecisiveness. So, you know, earlier when I said, you know, once you've identified that you're in a sustained downtrend, you don't want to trade against the trend. I made that mistake here, trying to go long there. All that is in the playbook. ES is also chopping sideways. SPY too. SP 500. Hey, John, if you're still here, let me pull up the playbook. I'll show you where that is in there. Let's see here. Can I pull this up on the stream? Something's not working right. Hold on a second. Let me fix this. Where is the playbook? No, not that. It's closer. That's not what I was looking for, though. Hold on a second. I gotta find out where I put that. Ah, I'll figure it out later. But yeah, those details for setting up that indicator. It's at I think it's like chapter 1 or chapter 2, where it talks about how to set that up. Well, the price is not really going anywhere anymore, guys. It's past 10 o'clock now. So are we just going to go sideways until lunch, or what's going to happen here? I did just put in a new low, though. Yeah, it's not a bad time to probably call it a day. If you missed this big momentum move down, then now is probably a decent time to quit. So yeah, we'll see you Monday. Have a good weekend. Still going to wait here a little bit to see if anything wants to play out, but if the chop doesn't end soon, I'll probably be calling it quits too. See ADX on 1 minute. Yeah, I'm sure it's pretty flat, huh? Hey, I think I found the playbook, and I figured out how to get it in the stream. Let me actually test it. Tell me if you guys can see this. Hold on a second. Can you guys see that? Here it is. This is where it goes into the setup. How to get those red zones and green zones on the chart. It's chapter 2. All right. Let's go back to our main scene here. All right, the delta is trying to climb here. See that, guys? It's just starting. We're starting to get a little bit of a positive slope in there. Those delta candles look like they're trying to get a little thicker, so this could be the beginning to a little bit of a move up. I still would not long this, though. I would wait. On the 5 minute, we do have the delta or the signal line finally about to close above the delta, though. That's usually a good or decent long signal. And time is it? 10:17. So if it closes that way in 3 minutes, then on the 5 minute, that would signal that we could start heading up at least for a short period. We still haven't touched that pivot, though. So I would not be surprised if we see a flush down and touch that pivot. The delta is actually gaining a little bit of positive strength now. Signal is getting closer to that upper power zone. So will we potentially have a short opportunity up here? Maybe. Looks like we are right next to the 50 EMA. We are starting to get a tick down near that upper power zone. I would like it more if we actually came up and touched that trend line first. Delta is tapering. I also prefer that tick down to be actually in that power zone, not just touching it the way that it is. So I'm going to sit that one out. We'll see if it can put in a lower high here on the signal. I am going to go get a refill. I'll be right back. What'll be nice is if the price makes a higher high and then we put in a lower high on the signal line and we touch that trend line. We'll have a little bit of bearish divergence then. This is also a little bit of a bull flag here. So we have the flagpole. We have the consolidation. And we have our 45-degree angle. There's the tick up from the breakout. That setup is actually in the playbook. in buying those tick ups when you see that happen. But this is not a spot where I would want to do that. Not with the signal all the way up here and that near that upper power zone, and see how weak the delta is? It just doesn't really have very much strength to it. So the price is going up, but the buyers aren't really stepping up to the plate here. At least not yet. So I am more interested in a short here if this bull flag breakout ends up failing. Well, we touched the trend line. So, checked one thing off our list. Delta's still pretty weak. We got the signal in the upper power zone now. We're starting to flash a tick down. Delta's still relatively weak. Closed above the 50. Delta's starting to get a little bit of strength now that we're starting to break that trend line. That Delta candle's getting thicker. Are we going to get a failed breakout? Let's see. Starting to get that tick down from the top of the power zone. Delta is tapering back down. Yeah, the Delta's still looking really weak to me. But that can change right before the candle close, so that's why I always wait for the close. Buyers are trying to push it up here. Are they going to get it? Delta's getting stronger. The Delta candle is getting thicker. Signal line is sliding along the top. That's usually indicative of an impulsive move. Well, the buyers might get this one. Let's see. If you did take that bull flag breakout move right here that we were talking about, you would be up about 16 points. Buyers still pushing it up here. Delta's getting stronger. Delta slope is actually increasing. Also starting to get a positive slope on the confirmation line. Now we're starting to get our first tick down from that upper power zone. I went ahead and shorted that. It's a little risky with the delta climbing the way that it is. Delta's starting to become exhausted, starting to turn negative. It was flashing negative anyway. Delta, even though it has this positive slope, it's still relatively weak. Like, you compare those Delta candles to like these, even these here. See how they were stronger? They're thicker. Like, see how thick these are? I mean, this is a weak Delta. That's what you want to do, is take advantage of weakness. So if the buyers aren't there and price is extended, you want to take advantage of it. Gonna go ahead and move my stop to break even. You know, that's the beauty of the cumulative delta. You can see those details. You know, it's kind of like having, you know, some underwater goggles and you can see under the water. See what's happening down there. If you're just looking at price action, you can't see those things. But with the cumulative delta, you can tell like how, you know, like who's winning the tug of war, so to speak. Is it the bulls or the bears? Are the bulls weak? If the bulls are weak and price is extended, take advantage of it. Maybe now we will finally come down and hit this pivot. Never quite touched it before. Anybody else take this trade? All right, we got to keep in mind that on the 1 minute, we are still bullish. Delta is above the confirmation line. Confirmation line has a positive slope. So if we get a tick up from this lower power zone, it's not a bad place to take profit. On the higher time frames, we are still bearish. So we'll see if this can continue pushing down and push the delta back under the confirmation line and have that sustained downtrend continue to be sustained. We'll see. We'll see if it's got, if the bears got it in them to keep pushing. Nice. All right, we are starting to tick up from that lower power zone. If the delta is not tapering, I'll probably sit tight. You always want to pay attention to what the delta is doing. Another option is to just start trailing at that point. If you do get a tick up here, if you don't want to exit right away. And that is, I think, what I am going to do here. So we didn't get that tick up officially. It was flashing, then before the candle closed, it pulled back down. It's ticking up now. We'll see if this one closes up. I move my stop down. All right. Hopefully the bears can step it up here and keep pushing. We want to see those delta candles get thicker and thicker, meaning that the bears are being more and more aggressive with the market orders. Come on, keep pushing. So we did tick up right there. So my stop, it's going to go above that last candle. And it just took me out. I would have been better off had I just exited right when, see where we officially closed white? That would have been right here. Literally at the bottom of that candle. But I was trailing. And it looks like, see, it just went back to the 8. This is that 8 SMA entry that I talk about. So, if you really wanted to capture the whole move, you would still, yeah, see, it's pushing down that pivot now. So I left a lot on the table, but you know, sometimes it's better to just go ahead and stuff it in the bag, right? Got 30 3/4 points out of that one. Yeah, nothing wrong with 30 points for sure. It's just that this tick up right here was such a weak one, and the delta is gaining strength. You can see it with that negative slope, and those candles are getting thicker. You know, if I wasn't talking as much right there, and I was more focused, I probably would have just stayed in. Because, I mean, the delta really tells you, you know, what's happening, and you can usually push a lot more out of it that way. On the higher time frames, on the 5, we did officially tick down. And you see how the 5 was trying to push up? We had a little bit of a positive slope here. But do you see how weak it was? It flashed positive one candle right here, but the rest of it was super weak. And then we ended up ticking down. So, and now those delta candles on the 5 are starting to gain their strength back. So, yeah, and now the confirmation, or the delta on the 1 is now underneath that confirmation line. So we could just continue pushing here. I usually trade micros. Trading minis, honestly, I don't think it's necessary. I think it just it puts you at more risk of losing your account. You know, you get on a little bit of a losing streak, and you can burn that up really, really quickly on a mini. But with micros, you can still make really good money. Yeah, personally, I think it's smarter to go with micros. So we pulled back to that 8 SMA. We'll see if it just wants to touch and go here for another move down. We do have our bear flag set up forming. So we got our our long pole. We have a somewhat of a 45-degree angle on a little bit of a consolidation here. We'll see if it wants to break down. The signal is back above the delta though, which isn't a great sign. So it'll, yeah, price will probably want to snap back here. Delta's starting to turn positive now. So that first tick up, you see how that was like, it was just a smidgen in there, like it was barely a tick up. And see how this next one, let me change my view so you can see that easier. You see how this next one was, it was just a stronger tick up than that first one. If we were in that trade, this is the better one to get out of. Or you could take the delta cross. So when the signal crosses back above the delta, so then you'd be out on this candle here, this down candle. So we left some money on the table, but like you said, you can't complain about 30 points. See, now that we got back above that 8, did you see it pull back to that 8? It kissed it, and now it's trying to pull up again. The 8 is pretty good. Like, if the price is moving, the 8 is pretty good about, you know, the price likes to stay on one side of it. It's when you start getting into those choppy consolidations where it's above and below and it just chops right through it. So you only want to use the 8 on momentum moves. Or if you got a buy signal, say this was a buy signal down here, you wait for the buy signal, and then you wait for price to get back above the 8, and then you put a limit order on the 8. And that's what I do. And then that typically gets you in on a wick like this one. So then you'd be, you know, right there at the end of that wick, and then your risk is relatively low. You can move stop to break even right away if you want. Or you just wait to see if it closes below the 8 again. And if it closes back below, you just exit out, usually at near break even or a very small loss. It's a way to keep your losses really small and get better entries. So we are ticking back down in the green zone. Delta's still pretty weak. It does have a positive slope to it, but it's fairly weak. It's still under that confirmation line. We did come back up and touch the 21. So this is a valid short signal closing here. I went ahead and entered short there. Now, it is in the green zone. I like it to be in the red zone, but when you're in a sustained downtrend like we are, you can start taking these from the green zone, and they're usually profitable. That delta looks like it's starting to roll over again. That's what we want to see. We want to see that momentum come back in those delta candles. We don't want to see it taper and start to turn positive again. We are sitting on that pivot line, which could potentially act as support, so we want to be aware of that. Even on this one, do you see how the entry on the 8 was actually better than the entry that I got? So after we got the signal, if you put a limit order on the 8, you get a little bit better price. My exit would be a tick up here. So as long as the signal is pointed down, I'm staying in. We want to see that strength come back in those delta candles. There we go. We do see some strength coming back. I also see a little bit of tapering was in there as well. So bulls might be trying to step in here a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and move my stop to break even. Hopefully that pivot line acts as some resistance for us to help push down here. All right, we are starting to get that tick up from that lower power zone. It's not official. It's something to be aware of. All right, keep pushing here. Looks like bulls are trying to step it up. We are ticking up here. Bulls are trying to step in, so I am going to pull the plug. All right. Small winner. Winner's a winner, right? Looks like you got 7.5 points out of that one. And it's trying to push down again after touching the 8. It's okay. By the way, really like your streams. Oh, cool. Well, thank you. I'm new to this whole streaming thing. So I just started streaming this week primarily. I ran a test last Friday. Wasn't really sure how it would go. Wasn't sure if I could sit here and talk to myself for hours. But hey, if you guys are liking it, I'll keep doing it. But speaking of likes, if you guys haven't hit the like button, please do that. Maybe we'll get some more people joining us. Yeah, if we didn't get that little tick up there, could have stayed in and got a little bit more on that one. You're doing great. All your sharing is really enjoyable to tune into. Awesome. Well, I guess that's positive. Thanks, Jaywaz. I think it's nice for me too to vocalize what I'm thinking, and that's all I'm doing. I'm just vocalizing what's going on in my head. If I wasn't on the stream, I would be doing the exact same thing, except I wouldn't be vocalizing it. I'd just be sitting here drowning in my own thoughts. And Q's hitting the 200 moving average at this level. Okay. Oh, look at that. Look at all that I left on the table. I'll turn my moving averages back on. Oh, I forgot. On the 4 hour. Oh, wow. We're definitely waterfalling down, aren't we? Maybe we'll end up hitting one of those order blocks down there by the end of the day. We'll see. If you look at the 4 hour delta, do you see this really strong push up? Buying, buying, buying. And here the buying gets exhausted. Pretty much marks the top right there. Start getting our negative slope. But this is all chop. It's a very thin delta. It's very indecisive. It's not really positive, not really negative. It's just kind of flat. And then we start getting our first sort of decisive candle right here. Maybe this one here. So that was yesterday at 5. Yep, from 5 to 9 a.m. yesterday, we got our first sort of decisive 4 hour candle down. And ever since, we've been getting thicker and thicker delta candles. So the sellers are stepping in more and more. And the signal is flat along the bottom. Just crossed under that confirmation line. So this could signal the beginning of a bigger downtrend. But I suspect that it's not. Because the confirmation line still has this positive slope to it. So my guess is we'll probably end up around in this area by these order blocks and start moving back up again. Or maybe around here on the 200, as you were pointing out. Back up to that 8 moving average. We'll see if it uses that as some resistance, if we can get above it. Delta is definitely tapering now and starting to point up a little bit. So far that 8 is acting as some resistance. Probably another good entry there to jump on the short train. Delta is still negative at the bottom. Still relatively thick. So the buyers are not around. Went ahead and tried a short on the 8. So we got that tick down first from the green zone, and then after the tick down, I put a limit order on the 8 at 496.75. There we are. So an exit for me in this scenario is a close above the 8. Hopefully we stay on one side of it. That's what I want to see. I want to see getting in on a wick. Signal line is still turned down. Delta is still negative and flat. We just need to see a little bit of follow through here. Keep pushing. Delta's starting to thin out a little bit. We need to see the sellers step it up here. Come on, guys. Push her down. There we go. Go ahead and move my stop to break even. Delta's getting thicker. It's what we want to see. I'm going to start trailing now. Come on, don't tag me out yet. Let's keep going down. There we go. Keep pushing. We are ticking up from the lower power zone with a higher low, and we have a lower low on price. So there is some bullish divergence here we have to be aware of. Doesn't mean it's a long. Could mean it just wants to push up briefly before heading back down. And it took me out. Small winner. 4.5 points. The lower low on price here. We have the higher low on the signal. That is going to push the price up a little bit. Delta's starting to turn positive now. So the bears are starting to get scared away. All right, now they're stepping back up to the plate now. Delta's starting to get a little thicker here. We're getting another tick down from the green zone. Delta's still really pretty thin though, so it's kind of risky either way here. Probably more of a turbulent area. Now they're starting to step back up. All right, we officially got that tick down in the green zone. Delta is still really flat. It's thin, but it's flat, so bears still have the advantage here. Thin deltas are something that you don't, as I was saying before, if it's thin, you don't really want to go short down here. So that means that the price can go either way. If the delta was thin and the signal was at the top, that would be a different story. If it was in that upper power zone, then you definitely want to short that. But not when it's down here. We're starting to flash another higher low on the signal above the delta. And if that delta thins out and starts to head back up, the bulls could start to take over. Well, it's 11:13 lunchtime, so wouldn't be surprised if we kind of just chop sideways here too. I mean, the market's made a pretty significant move so far throughout the morning. So it would make sense to have a little sideways action for a while over lunch. So who's watching the Tyson fight tonight? Anybody? We are getting that higher low tick up above the delta now. Delta was flashing positive again. Looks like we're going to try to break that trend line. Yeah, Tyson versus Jake Paul. It's supposed to be a highly anticipated event. So, yeah, my son and I are probably going to watch it. Who do you guys think is going to win? Personally, my money is on Tyson. That guy is a powerhouse, even at 58 years old or whatever he is now. Well, we got a big engulfing candle in there. We broke that trend line. The delta is positive. We do have a delta squeeze scenario right now. But we are in a sustained downtrend. So going long here is still very risky. You think Paul's going to take him? Yeah, I saw that video where he slapped him at the weigh-in. He stepped on his toes. You know, I feel like Paul, like either way, it's not really good for him, because if he wins, it's like he beat an old guy. But if he loses, it's like, well, you know, it was Mike Tyson. Well, yeah, and if he loses, it's because an old guy beat him, right? So like either way, the guy loses. Yeah, see, if you went long on that delta squeeze there, it's turning right back around on you. The longs in a sustained trend they're really risky. We're starting to get a tick down near the red zone. It kissed the red zone. Didn't quite make it inside, but scariest old guy I've ever seen. Yeah, no kidding, huh? Well, that delta squeeze might play out here. We'll see. Might have just been a little retest. What time is the fight? Do you know? Yeah, I think it's on, was it Netflix that it's on? That delta is trying to crawl back above that confirmation line. See if it can do it. 8 Eastern, okay. Delta still gaining some strength here to the upside. Yeah, so far that delta squeeze looks like it would have worked. For all the new people that don't know what a delta squeeze is, when you start to get this positive slope on the delta, well, you want a positive delta that either starts to turn into the slope or to start to get the slope before this tick up on the signal line above the delta. So this green triangle right there, that is what we call a delta squeeze. So you would be long right here and ride that up. We are not taking that because we are in a sustained downtrend. So we did take this one back here. See that green triangle up there? We went long there. We did have a winning trade there. But after the market proves that it wants to, see how the delta's been in this lower power zone this whole time? That is what we could call a sustained downtrend. That can go on for forever and ever and ever. So you don't want to trade against that. But let's go ahead and simulate this one and pretend that we entered there and see how we end up. Delta's back above that confirmation line. So bulls currently have the upper hand, but we have the signal in the upper power zone, so we should be looking for shorts here. Delta's still weak. See, we're tapering down there, those delta candles. We're starting to tick down near that upper power zone. Didn't officially tick down. That almost did. And the signal didn't quite make it in that upper power zone. It almost did. Delta still tapering down. It's looking pretty weak. Again, we want to take advantage of weak deltas. I don't like buying big candles. I was going to short that, but that was a valid short from right here. I just don't like buying these candles far away from the 8. I prefer to buy the 8 in that case. So I do have a limit order there on the 8 for a short. Now, when you do that, you do risk missing the trade if you don't get picked up. But you do get a better entry, so it's a good trade-off. All right, we just got tagged in at 494.50. All right, letter buck. It is lunchtime though, so again, we could just go sideways here. It might not go anywhere. So if we start to get some chop in here, I'm probably gonna be done for a while. Also, this price is on the 200 moving average on daily. Yep. Or 4 hour. Yep. That is right. So We do probably have some significant support here to be aware of. However, as long as the signals keep playing out in our favor, I'm going to keep taking them until the market can prove otherwise. We already tested that 8 SMA. So I'm going to go ahead and move my stop to break even. The delta is rounding back down, which is what we want to see. It's still weak. That entry there is actually really nice because not only is it the 8 SMA, but it's also the 21. So there's a little bit of confluence there. We are ticking back down on the 5. It's not official yet. Will be in 3 minutes if we close this way. Hourly 15 and 5 still very bearish. We're in full bear mode still. All right, if we get a tick up here above the delta, I'm pulling the plug. We are flashing a tick up. We just tested that 8 SMA again. Came close to my break even, but not quite. Again, we're starting to flash that higher low tick up. Hopefully the bears can push her back down. And I'm out. And that was a small winner there. My stop was right above that wick. 1.5 points. Yeah, I might just want to chop sideways from here. We are starting to see our first sign of chop. We have a thin, spotty delta. That is our signal. And once you see that, and you put your chop box there on the screen, you see that on the delta? That is your first signal to walk away and enjoy the day. So I think that's probably what I'm going to do. I am going to probably call it here. I'll probably take a few more trades later in the day if things start looking good again. So with that, hopefully this has been helpful for you guys. If it has, please hit the like button. And for the weekend, I'm going to play my new little outro song that we made yesterday with AI. So, yeah, enjoy the weekend, guys.
Now look at that move. It's like one of those big Delta candles. I mean, who even trades those tiny candles anymore? I like big fat candles, I can't deny. When the delta's green and riding high, when a chart spikes thick with a bullish wick, I'm glued to my screen, that's the trick. I want to bounce quick, can't let it go. Big delta bars, let that volume show. I'm zooming out, yeah, that's my groove. Catching waves in a delta move. Wanna trade slow? Nah, too tame. This market's got heat, I'm in the game. Delta skinny, not my taste. Fat candles on my happy place. Oh, traders, let me see that line. When the buyers push, I feel just fine. It's the fat move, no squeeze fake. I'm in this trend with no break. Got entries, stacking tall, no weak signals, I'm all in, y'all. Skinny candles just ain't for me. Big delta's my golden key. Sitting tight while volume pops. Green wave up won't make me stop. Short candles, nope, they're a bore. Give me fat deltas, I want more. Like those thick moves, yeah, yeah. I wanna break through, you know. Then hope and play, don't you fold. Big deltas fill the chart with might. Skinny moves don't make it right. Big fat candles, can't deny. When the volume surges up so high, skinny trades can take a seat. Big fat deltas are what I beat. Well, traders low, let me see that life is good. I'm my happy delta skinny, not my taste. Fat candles on my happy place. Oh, traders, let me see that line. When the buyers push, I feel just fine. It's the fat move, no squeeze fake. I'm in this trend with no break. Got entries, stacking tall, no weak signals, I'm all in, y'all. Skinny candles just ain't for me. Big delta's my golden key. Big delta's my golden key. Sitting tight while volume pops. Green wave up won't make me stop. Short candles, nope, they're a bore. Give me fat deltas, I want more. Like those thick moves, yeah, yeah. Wanna break through, you know. And hold and play, don't you fold. Big deltas fill the chart with might. Skinny moves don't make it right. Like those thick moves, yeah, yeah. I wanna break through, you know. Then hold, then play, don't you fold. Big deltas fill the chart with might. Skinny moves don't make it right.